8 years old with a rifle and a prayer. Squirrels in the branches, cold November air. Shot 'em in the head so they dropped straight down. Skinned 'em with a dull knife, no one else around. Hauled the wood and with a hatchet that wouldn't cut. Fire burned out by midnight, woke up frozen shut. Broke the ice on the well just to get a drink. Nobody was coming, learned real fast not to think. And Jim rode up in that Sunbeam Alpine. Pistol on his hip, stood tall as a pine. Put me to work at 10 in the yard. 2,000 cars and the iron hit hard. I set the prices, I knew every part. Handed him a fistful, hoping for his heart. Cut the steel, crushed the frames, loaded up the truck. All I ever wanted was for him to give a damn, that was enough. Vietnam was calling, the draft had my name. Boys were running north, but that wasn't my game. You wanna send me? Fine, I'll choose my own. I joined the United States Marines, I earn it to the bone. Helicopters shaking, rotors in the rain. Crew chief on a 46, I learned to love the pain. 3 years in Japan, I bowed and I fought. Learned karate with my fist and things that can't be taught. Back in the world and I couldn't sit still. Civilian life was loose, I was looking for the kill. Built a fortune up from nothing but my hands. Too many women, too much work, I couldn't understand it. Everything I built was a wall around the man. Colombia opened my eyes, I saw what life could be. Came back home and burned the playbook, them and set me free. I restructured companies, I spoke across the land. 30-day disasters down to 3, nobody else could understand. Trade magazines, radio shows, carcassed on the wall, nationally recognized, I answered every call. 200 articles deep, editor for 8 years straight. I was the man they flew in when the whole damn thing was late. Wealthy twice, I built it twice, I lost it once before. But every time I hit the floor, I got up wanting more. Skyrocket life, the top was mine, I owned the stage, the plan. Then cancer came knocking. Spindle cell, they said it's rare, they said I wouldn't last. Same age my brother died, the cruelest kind of glass. Drained every penny, left me flat and thin. but something deep inside me said it isn't time to give in. So I packed 4 bags and flew to Ecuador. 8,000 feet where the air was pure. Found some peace, found some friends, found a doctor who could see. But Colombia kept calling and I had to heed the plea. Armenia, Quindío, I finally found my home. Videos and coffee, I was done with being alone. Hundreds of stories filmed across the mountain green. The busiest I've been since I was 17. Then my heart gave way. A year recovering, but it's still not right. The body's slowing down, I can feel it in the night. The energy I carry like it couldn't run dry. Turns out even stubborn men eventually ask why. Now write my books because the stories need a voice. I refuse to lay down, that has always been my choice. But I'll admit what I never said before tonight. I am finally tired, but I'm still not done. I didn't leave because I was angry. I left because everything got loud. Every voice trying to win the moment. Nobody listening to the ground. I wanted space, not distance from reality. Distance from the noise, pretending to be reality. I stepped off the treadmill, left the shouting behind. No flashing banners in my head, just space to think and time. They sell you urgency, they sell you fear. Every voice is louder, but nothing's clear. I don't listen to what's promised, I watch what happens. I don't follow tone, I follow patterns. No borrowed fear, no rented rage, just facts moving across the page. What's the bills? Choices form. Watch who bends, watch who storms. Signals matter, noise is cheap. What they say versus what they keep. This is Sane in Colombia, where the volume comes down. No talking points, no marching sound. I don't chase the noise, I don't rent my mind. I step back far enough to see the design. Coffee on the table, mountains in the frame. Thinking for myself, that's how I stay sane. Living sane in Colombia. Sane in Colombia. Sane in Colombia.
Good morning and welcome back to the channel, Sane in Colombia, Thursdays, 11 a.m. And it's, well, it's a channel about anything I want to talk about. It's really become the AI channel, mostly because that's what I'm so immersed in, so involved in. Thank you. I see a group of you are here. I appreciate it. Uh, I have a mixed group of people that are now watching this channel. There's some people that are pretty well immersed in AI and have a fair amount of knowledge. And then there's people that are thinking about doing something with it, but they don't know what. So it's a pretty broad mix. So when I put together today's topic, which was not difficult, it was pushed on me practically every single day this month. I didn't know how to. I decided not to put any kind of lingo in it and basically just make it very simple, real talk. And if those of you that are heavily immersed in AI, in the AI world, it has its own language almost. Um, I'm just not gonna go there because a number of my friends who probably watch this only have their toe in it, and so I don't want to try to talk over their head. What's the point in doing a video if people don't understand? And if you've been involved in it for quite a while, you'll certainly understand what I have to say anyway. So today, like I say, it was pushed on me this entire month. And so what I want to talk about is what happened this month. That it seems like a lot of people are missing what's going on in this part of the world. And I guess if you're involved in working with AI, you can't help but see these things. But if you're not, you're not going to catch it anywhere, except here, of course. All right, so there's a company called Anthropic, and they make the AI called Claude, which has become my go-to. I use all of them for different things. I use Grok occasionally. I use Gemini more and more, not for Gemini itself, but for some of the features that it has that I can work with through Claude. It's pretty cool the way Claude is shaping out. And GPT, oh, GPT, it's one of those love and hate deals. Um, a piece of my heart will always be with GPT because that's where I began and spent a year. And it's good for certain things. I use it for second opinions mostly. But we're going to talk today about Anthropic and Claude. So here we are, the month of March. This is 2026 because information gets stale. This company, Anthropic, released so much new stuff so fast that even people who follow this industry closely were having trouble keeping up. By the way, I'm experimenting with something. If you're hearing any sort of echo or if there's anything weird about the sound, please tell me. Please mention it. I'll probably explain it Sunday. So anyway, here's what makes this whole thing about March interesting. Anthropic was not supposed to be the fast one. They were founded specifically to be the careful one. As a matter of fact, the people who started the company, man and wife, they left Chat GPT or OpenAI. They worked there. They were the top dogs there, and they didn't like the way OpenAI was what they considered in an unsafe direction. They didn't like the way it was being done, so they broke off, started their own company. And this company has been, up until March, has been 10% of the world's business out of 5 or 6 main characters. So They left, started their own company because they thought it was reckless over there. And their whole identity was pretty much has been we go slower. We think harder about these problems and we make sure nothing goes wrong. So, why are they suddenly winning a speed race? That's what I want to talk to you about because the answer tells you something important about where all of this is going. So let's talk about what they actually released this month. Now, if you know a little bit about AI, you know that you have a chat, you enter in a question or you ask it to do something, comes back with an answer. And then you can take the chat to another level by using the project feature. And if you really need to get involved in something, you can go over to co-work, or you can use code or codex in GPT. So there's different levels of how deep it's going to go. Those are pretty much the standard features for the last few years. And that's changed. So I'll give you a list of some of the things because the list is really the point. In March alone, they rolled out a memory system to every single Claude user on the planet, including people on the free plan. Memory means Claude remembers who you are from one conversation to the next. Your name, what you're working on, how you like things explained. You come back the next day and it already knows you. Other companies have been offering that to paying customers for over a year. Now, Anthropic now has given it to everyone. They launched a plug-in marketplace, a scheduling system, so you can tell Claude to do something every morning without you being there. A tool that generates charts and diagrams right inside the chat window. It updates to versions of Claude that live inside Microsoft Excel and PowerPoint. There's 2 separate rounds of updates to their coding tool. There are 2 in the articles that I researched for this, but I personally have done 4 updates. I opened my desktop version of Claude, and on the left side, near the bottom, it'll say version 11.6543, whatever. Click here to update. I've done 4 of those in the past week or so, but officially they say 2. I don't know. There's now a mobile feature, so you can assign tasks from your phone and walk away. So if I have Claude desktop on my desk open, or just open but shut down on the taskbar, I use Windows. If I were to be out somewhere, I could go in here to Claude. I think of an idea, or I wanted to run through my emails, or I don't know, whatever it is. But I'm away from my desk. I'm out doing things, but it'd be nice if I could get that out of the way while I'm thinking about it before I forget it. I can go in here and it's a category called dispatch, and I can tell it to do whatever it is I want it to do and tell it the time or whatever, and it will do it. So I can assign work to it from my phone. And here's the beauty of it. When you use dispatch, when you're using AI, you get a certain number of tokens. Now with Claude, I'm on a paid plan, $20 a month. So you have free, you got 20, and then you got 100 and up. Well, I can't do the 100 and up. I always run out, like I ran out today, but it renews tomorrow. It's a weekly thing. And then you got an hourly thing. So I run out with the hours, but in a couple hours it's refreshed so I can keep going. I can get a lot of work done during a day. But during the week, I run out because I do so much, I just can't up the thing. And it goes by what they call tokens. These are just figure it blocks of work. And so you get so many tokens and you get this bar. It's like Well, you got 10% left, you got 8% left, so you can track it. You can look at usage. Well, the thing with dispatch, it'll do whatever jobs you give it to do, and it does not use tokens. It works off of Anthropic's own bank. And so rather than, well, I was going to do a research for considering another book. And so I asked, could you check my files and gather up any kind of information on this topic? Because I don't want to have to redo some things. And so I gave it a task of get some things off the internet, go to some files that I've archived, and gather these things up. And it says, well, you want me to do it through dispatch? I said, oh, you can do that. Oh, yeah, okay. So I set it up for dispatch. And about an hour later, I came back, and apparently had been working on it for 20 or 30 minutes because there was a lot of stuff. And it had everything all gathered and sorted and put into a new folder for me to look at. It was all organized, and it didn't cost a dime. It's like, holy moly. And you, like I say, you can assign it through your cell phone. You can also do it sitting at your desktop. They started a new research institute to study the economic impact of what they're building. Also, they have a website called Anthropic Academy, and college credited. You can take a series of courses. You can take a series of courses on the nuts and bolts of using AI. How do I use a chatbot? How do I use projects? How do I use co-work? What about code? I don't know that those are college credited, but they have them available and they're in the same format. They used to be you'd pay for them. Everybody else has these types of courses also unique to them, and there's charges. And typically it'd be like $49 per course, and there might be 13 for a particular syllabus. Well, all of them, without fanfare, I stumbled across it by accident. They're all free now. Anthropic Academy, they're all free. From the simple basic ones, which you think, well, they would want to do that to get more users, to the very involved college level programmers. You pick your poison or start at the beginning and work your way up. That's a ton of stuff in a month. And there's more. There's more things like chats. You can now take chats and move them into a project. Before, you could never move them. Before, one chat didn't recognize the other chats. Now it does. It's crazy how much. That's just this month. But in February, it was kind of the same. They released their most powerful model ever, the 4.6 Opus, 4.6 Sonnet. And then they had a second major model 2 weeks later. Then a desktop assistant that sent stock prices dropping for enterprise software companies the day it launched, because these assistants, these additions, these features are allowing people with, like me, marginal programming skills to do high level coding. Now, there is such a thing, it's been around a while, it's called vibe coding. And that's somebody who has absolutely no skill whatsoever in coding. And people were putting together software programs. The problem was they're full of holes, because if you don't know coding at all, it's very problematic, with the exception of maybe some very, very basic, simple programs. However, there's features now that you can put out what a team of programmers, professionals, would have done in a matter of weeks. If you have even some basic knowledge, you can put it out in a matter of days on your own. And so these enterprise software companies, they've taken a big hit in the stocks because of these things. Investors, I mean, they looked at what it could do and realized it might replace a lot of expensive software subscriptions also. You know, if you're involved in paying for a service every single month, maybe that's not so useful. So there's been a major update roughly every 2 weeks for the last few months. To understand why this pace, the speed of this matters, just take a quick picture of what the competition looks like. You got OpenAI, the company that makes GPT. They dropped a major new model on March 5th. Google released a new version of Gemini in February. A Chinese company called DeepSeek released a massive model this month that any developer in the world can download and use for free. Every one of these is a serious, powerful system. The AI companies are all releasing things. I mean, it's not new. It's what they do, right? And it's what they should do. But the gap in volume between what Anthropic is putting out and what everyone else is putting out is just crazy. And when you look at why, you find something that it doesn't really have precedent in the history of technology. I know that's a bold statement. The man who runs Anthropic's coding tool, the tool that developers use to write software, he announced publicly in January that he personally has not written a single line of code in more than 2 months. One of the world's elite premier code writers. It's what code writers look up to. This guy he's it. He's the end all of code writing. And he says, this was in January, that he hasn't written a single line of code in more than 2 months. Everything he builds now is built by AI. He says the same is true for almost everyone else at that company. And here's the part that takes a moment to sink in. Roughly 90% of that coding tool's own code was written by the coding tool itself. The AI built itself, or at least most of itself. Think about what that does to a release schedule. If your engineers are producing work at 50% greater speed than they were a year ago, and that's Anthropic's own reported number, and if the tool is doing most of the building, it's also the product you're selling, then every time you make that product better, you also get faster at making it better. It's like a loop that just closes up and it keeps going. Their desktop assistant, the one that rattled the stock market when it was launched, was built in 10 days using AI. A year ago, something like that would have taken months. We didn't have it a year ago because it was taking so long. They say that now things that used to take weeks takes days. 60 to 100 internal updates shipped per day, every day. I mean, if you know anything at all about technology and shipping updates, 60 to 100 internal updates shipped per day. That's not a company working harder. That's a company that's connected to the engine itself. Here's the part that surprised me when I looked at the numbers. Claude has about 2% of global chatbot web traffic, practically nothing. ChatGPT has 64%. If you measure by who shows up in browser history, Anthropic is barely a footnote. But when you look at where businesses are actually spending their money on AI, real corporate purchasing data, Anthropic has 40% of the market. OpenAI, GPT, has 27%. That's a company with 2% of chatbot traffic capturing 40% of business spending. Why? because nobody can touch it. And they're pulling away from the crowd at a speed that has never been seen before. Their revenue went from $1 billion at the end of 2024 to somewhere around $20 billion this month. That rate of growth does not have a comparison in the history of enterprise technology. And that includes when the government decided we're not going to use Anthropic anymore and we're going to go with GPT. It takes that into account. Up until then, the Department of War was using almost exclusively Anthropic. And in the first week of March, Claude went to number 1 on the iPhone App Store in the United States. It'd been ranked 42nd 2 months earlier. Something's really shifted, and it's shifted really fast. So I mentioned the Pentagon. So that we'll talk about this piece of the story. I mean, I don't want to skip over it because it explains some of what I'm talking about. The Trump administration labeled Anthropic a supply chain risk this month. That's a designation normally used for foreign companies suspected of espionage. The reason, as best as anyone can tell from public reporting, was that Anthropic refused to give the government blanket permission to use Claude in autonomous weapon systems or mass surveillance programs. They said no. The government pushed back hard on that. Anthropic filed legal action. Within hours of that news spreading, OpenAI announced a deal with the Pentagon. They saw an end. And within hours, Claude went to number 1 on the App Store. I mean, it exploded. Make of that what you will. But it appears that a meaningful number of people, when they heard that one AI company refused a weapons contract and another one took it, they responded by downloading the one that refused. The safety company, as it's termed, held its line and got rewarded for it commercially. That wasn't the expected outcome. Nobody saw that coming, least of all Anthropic. So here's a simple version of all this. A company that was built to go slowly is now going faster than anybody else at an unbelievable pace because their AI is doing most of the building. That loop, AI building better AI, faster and faster, is a thing that everyone in the industry is watching. Anthropic did it first, or at least earlier than the others. And the numbers are showing what happens when you do. So I moved down here in 2018. One of the things you get from stepping back from the daily noise and dipping your toe in at your own pace is a pretty clear view of the shape of things. And the shape of this particular thing is that the rules of how fast a company can move just changed. And the company that changed them was the one that was supposed to be in no hurry. So, no comments, but I got a bunch of people watching, which I appreciate. Thank you for being here. I'm trying to build this channel up. I have in the can, I've got probably a dozen topics that are competing for what's next. I'm going to be doing these Thursdays, but I'll probably slide some in between. If you have any questions or comments, feel free. Let me get that banner off there. That's really annoying me. It's been there this whole time. Hey there, I'm listening to you from YouTube. Thanks for your insights. Thank you, I appreciate it. I don't know when you comment on that. I had that window closed because I get almost nobody from YouTube, but I see there's a couple there. For at least the near future, I will be keeping YouTube for this channel. For the Coffee Time Live, it's ended. It's over. It's dropped. The thousands of subscribers there, they're just going to be parked there. It's all on Rumble. For this channel, its main channel is on Rumble, but I am also streaming there. It's going to X, it's going to Facebook, and it's going to Kick. So it's being streamed at a number of places. Let's see. Okay, before I end it for today, any comments, any feedback? Is there anything on these microphones? I'm very curious. What I have here, if you can see it, I've got two microphones. And the reason being, I have everything set up. It's very difficult to move. I'm kind of centered, but the microphone arm for one wasn't reaching quite far enough. I really wasn't comfortable with where it was. But because I've had guests in the past that would sit here next to me, I've got another arm, another microphone set up there, and I just always leave it off when it's only me. Well, I've wheeled it over, and so now you see here they are perched, kind of pointing like that. And I didn't know if it was going to pick up any kind of echo, if there was anything weird about it. It shouldn't be. It should come across, because I've got it through a mixer. It should come across basically sounding as one, but I'll get less fading because of its position. All right. So no questions, no comments. I guess we'll end it here. Again, thank you guys for being here. I very much appreciate it. I hope you appreciate this topic because I really want to keep it going. And I'll see you next Thursday. And for those of you who watch Coffee Time Live, I will see you Sunday. And I'll be talking about this letter I got that was waiting for me at the guard station. So I'll tell you all about it Sunday. Thanks for being here. Ciao.
Okay.